Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Church in Plano. My name is Reverend Dr. Aija Duelm, and I'm glad you are here in person or joining us online. As Unitarian Universalists, we come together for worship to remind ourselves of who we are and how we want to live. We gather here to stay connected with one another and also to stay connected with our dreams of justice. Today, we will explore the concept of trust. Because trust is a fundamental cornerstone of human healthy relationships. But it is not always freely given or freely received. So we will look at what trust is, what its function is in our relationship, and how can trust be deepened. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your journey, I am glad you are here today. For the call to worship, I'm offering you these words that were written by Gary Kowalski. In this quiet hour, may our spirits be renewed. In this gathering of friends, may we be ready to extend ourselves to those in need, and with trust to receive the hand that is offered. In this community of ideals, may we remember the principles that guide us and reflect upon those things that give meaning to our lives, renewing our dedication to serve the highest that we know. In this time of worship, may our minds be open to new truths and our hearts be receptive to love. As we give thanks for the life we are blessed to share. Let us join in worship. When I was growing up, we played a lot of games. Every birthday party, we had a set of games we went through. And I'm not talking about board games. I'm actually talking about interactive games where we have to talk to each other, touch each other, hide from each other, discover each other, and engage one another in other ways. So when I went to study in the university that most of you here might call college, I kept being engaged in various student activities. We would go on weekend trips with some fun program. They were singing and hiking and also playing games. One of the games that we played was a trust game. What we did is we would have one person stand up somewhere high, even higher than this podium, and the rest of us would line beneath it, stretching out our hands, and the person standing high tall would close their eyes and they would fall on our hands, and we would catch them. I was pretty good at catching people. But whenever it was my turn to fall down, I had a rush of adrenaline every single time. These last 2 weekends in a row, I had an opportunity to see an air show. 2 air shows. One was in San Antonio where I saw Thunderbirds. And yesterday I saw our Blue Angels here in Fort Worth, and they're still flying today around 3 o'clock if you want to rush over there. But both of these groups, they demonstrate an amazing skill and precision as they form one of the most dangerous formations, diamond, flying together, 6 planes close to one another. And what I kept thinking is trust. Because it's not just your skill and technical ability to fly. You have to be able to trust your teammates to fly in this formation Because one minor movement away, and there's a huge tragedy coming. We here may not be flying planes. I will not ask you to fall down on anyone's arms either today. We could try, but I'm kind of hesitant to do that, because some of us have more brittle bones than others. But our daily lives are filled with moments where we need to practice trust. Trust in others, trust in ourselves. So we just completed our pledge drive, and we are looking at another year ahead. And it will require us to trust one another, that we will do our best in this next coming year, that we'll use our resources wisely, and that we will be a community that we hope and want to be this coming year. So let's talk about trust today. I will talk about it, because trust is not an easy thing after all. We all might think that we are trustworthy, that people can trust us. But then what we often find is that it's not easy for us to trust others. Whether I'm talking about our leaders, our institutions, or people in general. According to Erik Erikson's development theory, we learn to trust from an early age. It is one of the first things that we do as infants. We start to learn trust. When our caregivers come and meet our basic needs, that's when our trust forms. And if our needs are not consistently met, we instead learn mistrust. And then we go through life and through experiences that may hurt us, that do hurt us, that bring disappointments, and then we learn not to trust easily. I looked through at some research data, that is the most recent one that I could find, and most of the research I found just says simply this: Americans are not very trusting people. Pew Research poll says that fewer than 2 in 10 Americans say that they trust the government in Washington to do what is right, just about always, or most of the time. Well, that's kind of a high bar to, most of the time to do what's right. But still, this rating is one of the lowest measures in nearly 7 decades of polling. Last year, 20% said they trusted the government just about, or most of the times, to do the right thing. Some other nations poll slightly higher in the trust level in their government. Another research Gallup poll revealed that trust has declined among people in all of the institutions. So we're talking about businesses, we're talking about medical system, U.S. Supreme Court, banks, organized religion, media, and even science. And even in our personal relationships, we have encountered numerous disappointments with others, so that we are now choosing very carefully whom we trust, if we choose to trust at all. If you have ever experienced trauma in your life, then you know that when you go through trauma, trusting is harder. Our ability to trust is affected. Because any traumatic event will shift our experience of the world and may result in expectations of danger, betrayal, or potential harm. And that affects new relationships, but it also can affect old relationships, the ones that we've known for years. Survivors may feel vulnerable, they feel confused about what is safe and what is not. And that's what makes it difficult to trust others. And there are different kinds of traumas that people experience. Affairs, domestic abuse, neglect, violence, accidents. The list can go on and on and on, because trauma is not defined by what happened, but how that event was experienced. The emotional reaction, the impact of the event is what is understood as trauma. We all experienced such an event last summer when our church was attacked. And this event was traumatic for us. Some felt it more, some might be slightly less. But as a community, our ability to feel safe in our own house of worship was affected. We experienced a loss and we grieved. And we're still grieving. And we will never be the same again. Next week we will do training to know what to do if something bad happens here. This event last summer, it came from outside. But we also know that even within our own house of worship, there have been and probably will be experiences where we will get disappointed. Disappointed with people or in the organization itself. Where we will struggle with our ability to trust again. Because as you use, we are not naive. And we recognize that people will betray us, behave badly, even commit atrocious acts. So, if people can't be trusted, institutions can't be trusted, government can't be trusted, what is a person supposed to do? When all our experiences accumulate, we may find ourselves being in a place like this person in the story that Jen read earlier, looking for a pebble of trust, but finding ourselves stuck with that habit where we are quick to throw every pebble away. We may look at everything with a great deal of suspicion and possibly use a phrase that Ronald Reagan famously said about the nuclear disarmament treaty with the Soviet Union when he said, "Trust, but verify." Well, the answer is not easy. The answer is trust anyways. Because study after study tells us that without trust, things break down. Whether it is at a cosmic level, government level, institutional level, or a personal level. Trust helps us to navigate the world in a way that minimizes stress, fear, and worry. And when trust is absent, we are under stress. We build walls, whether figuratively or actual. And we require confirmation of everything, verification of everything. And it's very hard to do business that way. It is difficult to coordinate activities that require cooperation and planning. And it gets impossible to get anything done. Trust is a cornerstone of relationships and our work together. And it is vital that we regain our sense of trust. And there is a way to come back and regain our ability to trust. And it starts with those small ways. A common, ordinary trust, which psychologists call a transactional or relational trust. So this happens that when you say, "I will be back at 7 tonight to pick you up," and you do show up at 7 to pick that person up. This kind of trust is founded on reciprocity, fairness, and mutual respect. John Gottman, who's perhaps one of the most famous marriage counselors, says that we trust when we believe that the person we trust has our backs and will act accordingly. This is that ordinary trust in human relationships. And then it extends from a personal relationship to institutions, from church to government to banks to media, to trust that all have our backs and will do right by us. And transactional or this relational trust is a two-way street. It requires that we ourselves are trustworthy, that we are honest, that we keep our word, we keep our confidences, we do things that are in the best interests of other person, that we own up to our mistakes. So that we keep adding marbles to that marble jar and build them up, because it is up to us to give a good reason to others to trust us. Because simply saying, you can trust me, is not going to do it. And then there's a second kind of trust. That one is more of a spiritual or innate attitude that we can carry about life and the world. Reverend Jim Checkley describes it as the trust that comes from our inner strength and provides us with confidence that however the world turns out this day, we will deal with it and be okay. So yes, there are reasons why trust is at all low time in these days. But if we want to make things better, both for ourselves and for others, we do need to take the first step and cultivate trust, an attitude of trust ourselves. It does take courage. It takes confidence that we will be able to deal with whatever will come our way. But amazingly is that the payoff will be a happier, more satisfying experiences. And then, when we come across the pebble that is warm, when we find that real touchstone that can turn any common metal in pure gold, we will be in a place where we will not throw it away, but hold on to it and treasure it. And trust me, I can live with that. Amen.